Hello friend, my name is Kiri and today we're going to be talking about Red Data Girl, which is an adaptation by PA Works from the novels by Noriko Ogiwara. It first aired in 2013 and tells the story of 15-year-old Izumiko Suzuhara, a girl raised in a mountain shrine that destroys any electronics she touches due to the fact that she is a yorishiro. And a yorishiro is something that is to be possessed by a spirit. She finds out that the boy that used to bully her when she was little is actually training now to become a mountain monk because he is to be tasked with protecting her for the rest of his life. So they attend a special academy in Tokyo for students like them with the magicness and the ghosty goos going on, but then a whole bunch of weird shit happens when they find out that the spirit that is destined to possess Izumiko is actually the spirit that is going to destroy humanity. I absolutely loved the opening for Red Data Girl. It may have been a little typical of anime, but there was just something about it that made me adore it. The opening was fun and colorful and gave us insight to what the series is, and the song it made me feel really good. And I know that sounds a little weird, but you know how there are anime openings that just have those songs that make you feel all happy and giddy inside? That's what the opening for Red Data Girl did for me. And it really just felt like a song that was tailored to the modern half of the anime, which I'll explain that in a second. That was a lot harder to explain than I thought it was. Remember how I said I absolutely hate stills? This closing really challenged that. I mean, the entire closing was cliche with stills and Izumiko just walking in a single direction, but it's just so nice. And it kind of made sense to have something kind of simple with the closing because the song that went with it was also kind of simple. It was very laid back. I want to point out that the ending really complements the traditional side of Red Data Girl, which bounces back and forth between traditional and modern Japan, or aspects of Japan. The opening obviously went hand in hand with the more modern aspects, so having an ending like this, they really complemented each other as well as the anime, though I will still say that stills are still boring. A vast amount of Red Data Girl is centered around Folk Shinto, which is the part of Shinto that has beliefs in multiple spirits and deities. Because of my obsession with Fatal Frame, I found myself in a familiar place, but if you aren't really all that educated on the different types of Shinto, I feel like you may find yourself a little lost and confused while watching this, because the writers don't take a whole lot of time to explain the intricacies of what's happening. That's not necessarily a bad thing because it's better than taking too much time to explain something, but they kind of just sort of gloss over the details. So like I said, if you're a little ignorant on the matter, I feel like you may be kind of confused at parts. That aside, the characters were introduced to the series as middle schoolers, but in all actuality, they felt more like they were about to graduate high school. With the way that they carried themselves, the way that they acted, their mannerisms, the way they talked, it really just felt like they were a lot older than what they were supposed to be. There is an exception to this, which is Izumiko, who definitely felt like a middle schooler even as she was entering high school. Now, in terms of character development, I won't say there's a ton of it. I mean, each character works on their own issues, such as Izumiko getting over her very ridiculous level of shyness, and Miyuki, who was her childhood bully, getting over, being a total asshat. But when it came to development, there's a lot more going on with the story than with individual characters. The story developed very nicely. I loved the way that it was written, and this was a beautiful story. Just if you're one of those people that's a stickler for character development, I don't know if this would really be the series for you. The art style for Red Data Girl was absolutely stunning. I loved how the hair textures looked, the eyes had an unusual coloring that really stood out as unique, and the use of subtle coloring on the cheeks that give them a little bit of a blushing effect really added a nice touch. It sort of gave them a little more dimension. And you know how a lot of animes these days have the same character face with the same eyes, they just give everyone different eye colors and hairstyles? That is not present here whatsoever. Each and every character had a different face shape, skin tone, as well as hair and eye color. And there was a variety of different eye shapes, eyebrow shapes, and even body types. As for body proportions, everyone had pretty damn good anatomy, but Izumiko's head would just get really large and weird sometimes. This didn't happen with anyone else, but with her hair, it sometimes just got kind of bulbous and it just looked way too huge for the rest of her body. And it wasn't like super duper distracting, but you could tell. And it was like when it did distract you, it distracted you. In terms of world design, it was nothing short of gorgeous. The academy, the mountain forests, the shrines, the spirit world, everything was absolutely stellar. My only complaint is how overly detailed everything was, because you would have this beautiful background with all sorts of details and shading, and then you would put a cartoon character in front of it and it made them look really flat, and a lot of the times they would look, or not a lot of the times, but there were a few times where they just really harshly contrasted each other and it really stood out at you. The animation was just as splendid as the design itself. Everything was very crisp and it was fluid, nothing was jumpy or jerky, and this really worked well with the fighting and dancing scenes, because those scenes were just, they needed good animation and they got it. All in all, I really liked Red Data Girl. I thought it was very enjoyable to watch, but I feel like it might not be for everyone for the reasons I previously stated. However, it had an amazing soundtrack. Whoever put it together was an expert at their job. Every song that was used was the perfect one to enhance the atmosphere, and every time a scene called for it, there was a subtle, beautiful song playing in the background that you didn't really notice it at first because it was just so fitting. And the voice acting was out freaking standing. There was not one voice actor that felt out of place. There wasn't a character that felt like they had a very mediocre voice actor. Even the unimportant characters had very good voice acting. And Bryn April voiced Izumiko, who actually at times sounded like Lauren Bailey, who is one of my favorite voice actresses, so she got a +1 from me. Anyways, those are my thoughts on Red Data Girl. Have you seen it? Are you going to see it? Let me know in the comments below. Otherwise, you can find all of my social media as well as my Patreon in the description. Happy unbirthday, and I'll see you later. Bye! Out the story as a very gentle and kind teenager that was only becoming a concubine, so her sister didn't have to. But as the series progressed, we see her transform into a cold, conniving woman. How the was I supposed to figure that out? That was really the biggest mistake that the developers made with creating this game. They thought that we were omniscient like they were, and we're obviously not. The developers didn't